When I trained for my first marathon, I struggled with knee pain, hip flexor pain, and calf tightness. This disrupted my training so much that I was underprepared at the start line, which embarrassingly meant I was walking by the end and finished 20 minutes slower than I'd hoped. Fast forward 10 years, I've recorded over 350 podcast episodes, published a book, and gathered over 300 research papers, all in the pursuit of one goal: helping runners train smarter. But there's always been one burning question runners keep asking: how can I train for my fastest marathon without getting injured? That's where the latest AI developments come in. I've been able to take the research, the experience, the expert insights, and train an AI system to analyze it instantly. So I put it to the test and asked the AI that very question. And what I got back were 6 key areas every runner needs to focus on, each backed with clickable links to the latest research. So let's break them down. A superior training plan starts with the right duration. Some people look for a 12-week plan, but this is risky. Instead, opt for a well-structured 18-week plan with a deload week sprinkled in every 3 to 4 weeks. Ideally, you want to run about 4 to 5 times per week. You can get away with 3 or 6, but you might be risking underperforming or overtraining with these options. If your body is ready for speed, you can add in strides once per week, which are 30-second pickups, accelerating for the first 15 seconds, then holding that top speed for 10 seconds and slowing down for 5 seconds, repeating 4 to 6 times. And after a few weeks, if you desire, you can add in longer interval sessions. For example, 2-minute efforts followed by a 1-minute recovery repeated 5 times. Get creative with this session and find something that is challenging yet achievable while also suiting to your running goals. The strides will develop your power and running form, while the longer intervals will boost your aerobic capacity. Your longest long runs should reach about 20 miles, which is 32 kilometers, or 3 hours, whichever one comes first. This is a golden rule for most, but can be adjusted based on your experience and fitness level. We cap this distance at 20 miles because of diminishing returns, meaning the benefit of going further won't match the long recovery that is required afterwards. Plus, research shows that training programs with long runs beyond this distance aren't associated with better marathon performances. You then enter the taper period, which, if done correctly, will significantly boost your running performance. The taper should last about 2 weeks with a 40 to 60% reduction in volume, while keeping the number of runs per week and the short speed sessions relatively consistent. Now, the real magic that is linked to increased performance is building up your weekly mileage as much as possible. In fact, research considers a successful high volume of around 65 miles or 105 kilometers per week. This won't be achievable for most, but highlights the importance of building weekly mileage safely. But how do we do it safely? It sounds pretty cliche, but increasing your weekly mileage by about 10% per week is reasonable. It can be closer to 15% if you are starting off with a really low weekly mileage, say less than 15 miles per week. But a smaller 5 to 8% increase might be more appropriate if you are already running at a higher mileage, for example, more than 35 miles per week. But listen to your body no matter what percentage increase you decide, and if you feel like you're not tolerating it, then make the necessary adjustment. But we can't build mileage safely and effectively unless the vast majority of your running is spent at a really low intensity, often referred to as your intensity distribution, which is the AI's second suggestion. Here is the effort scale out of 10, with 1 being like a slow walk and 10 being an all-out effort. Pay close attention to the description of a 3 to 4 out of 10, which is an intensity that is faster than walking, but you feel like you can maintain for hours. Matt Fitzgerald is the author of 80/20 Running, and I had the chance to interview him on the Run Smarter podcast, and he said this:
the proper boundary between low and moderate intensity, it falls between 77 and 81% of maximum heart rate. You would know experientially that it's not that hard. In terms of RPE, that threshold aligns perfectly with a 4. And it's critical because if you're just above it, then it's much more stressful to your autonomic nervous system and it takes longer to recover. And if you're just below it, you recover much more quickly. It's much less stressful. If you're above that threshold when you intend to be at low intensity just one time, no big deal. But if you do that habitually, which most recreational endurance athletes do, then it creates this like chronic burden of unresolved fatigue.
So on your easy run days, start fresh and finish fresh. Recover quickly, slightly bump up the mileage, and put that on repeat for months. By the way, this Run Smarter AI assistant is available to you too. Just go to the link in the description to learn more. Imagine if you could run at your same usual speed, but feel less tired, or run faster at your current easy effort. That's what happens when you increase your running economy, which is essentially using oxygen more effectively.
If a runner's using less oxygen to run at a given speed, then they have more energy effectively to be able to maintain that speed for a longer period of time.
Mark came onto the Run Smarter podcast to discuss his recent paper on running economy, in particular how footwear can enhance it. Mark mentions 3 direct ways shoes can enhance running economy. The first being lighter weight, the second a density of the sole foam that can return more energy to the runner, and third, an insertion of a carbon fiber plate. And while researchers aren't exactly sure why a carbon plate is so effective, it is believed that it acts like a lever when making contact with the ground, essentially propelling you forward. The AI assistant managed to find this paper, which analysed and ranked the running economy of 7 carbon fiber shoes. However, it was released in 2021, so bear in mind, things could have changed since then. But there is another component the AI suggested, which has been proven to boost your running economy, but only if you do it correctly. Strength training continues to show improvements in running economy, typically between 2 and 8%. That's an improvement of up to 19 minutes for a typical 4-hour marathoner, and is comparable with the best running shoes in the world, which show an improvement of 3 to 4%. But the exact approach to strength training that delivers these results is probably not what you think. Firstly, low weight, high repetition exercises such as bridges, crab walks, bodyweight squats, and core-based exercises won't get you these results. Instead, the research suggests choosing exercises that you can progress with heavy weights, such as back squats, split squats, and deadlifts. However, I like to personally add another, which are bent knee calf raises. Aim for 4 sets of 6, which isn't a lot, but means you have the opportunity to add more weight once you feel ready, with the disclaimer that you have adequate technique and enough foundation strength to tolerate the weight you choose. Aim to do these exercises 2 times per week, separated by at least 8 hours on your run days. In fact, research shows that the closer you get to lifting your maximum, the more it will benefit your marathon finish time, so prioritize lower reps and heavier weights. Only once you have laid a foundation with everything we have discussed, you can then sharpen the spear with plyometrics, which doesn't yield as much benefit versus heavy strength training, but can add benefit if the heavy strength training is already in place. The best exercises the AI found in the research were 60 drop jumps, increasing the height every 20 jumps, and single leg hopping following this progression chart. These can be done twice per week after your easy runs. The 5th and final area of focus are simple ways to reduce your injury risk. And I'm glad you've made it this far into the video, because not only are these tips a game changer, but watching until the end means you are the type of runner who rightly sees running knowledge as a worthwhile investment. But to really make yourself accountable and to actually implement what you learn requires a little bit more skin in the game. So if you want to raise your running IQ and commit to training smarter starting today, take on my next practical tip, which is to press pause right now, hit subscribe and comment "I pledge to run smarter." Then you can resume watching the rest of this video. Not only will you make a commitment to yourself, but taking this action is also a great viewer signal for YouTube, who will respond by surfacing more of these videos into your feed. Plus, once you make this pledge, you will join thousands of Run Smarter scholars who have already made the pledge and are transforming their running as we speak. But we can't expect to run a fast marathon if we get injured during training. And despite the very high rates of injuries in runners, high quality research doesn't consistently link injuries with high or recent changes in training load. This even shocked me because for years I was teaching runners if you abruptly increase the load on your body by doing too much too soon, it will exceed the capacity of a joint or muscle or tendon and increase your risk for injury. But now, after sifting through the research, I've learned that injuries are more complex than just load versus capacity. For example, this paper found a 70% increase in injury rates when adolescent runners slept less than 8 hours. And another study found a 32% increase in injuries if athletes reported a psychological or lifestyle health complaint 1 week prior. Even in this paper, found an increased risk of injury during the ovulation phase of a menstrual cycle. So what's going on here? Well, researchers recognize that not only do we need to monitor physical load, but also psychological load, such as negative life event stress, hassles, anxiety, and type A behaviors. Because if mismanaged, prevents the body from entering a calm, relaxed state, which is necessary for repair and regrowth. In other words, you want to avoid overtraining, but just as important, you want to avoid under-recovery. And what's the best way to monitor this? The AI assistant reminded me of a page from my book where I interviewed researcher Eric Hegedus. And if there is one thing you need to learn about reducing injury risk, it is this. Eric mentioned closely monitoring general fatigue, daily stress, sleep quality, and overall muscle soreness, and says if all of these areas are bad, reduce your training load or an injury is coming for you. I explain this in full detail in my free 5-day injury prevention challenge, so I'll leave the sign up link in the description if you're interested. But let me be honest with you, you could execute the perfect training plan and get through injury free and still fall short on race day. Because the crucial piece I haven't discussed yet is how to determine your optimal race pace. And once you know your race pace, how to build race pace efforts into your training plan. You can learn all about it by clicking here.